What's up, people? Craig Lopez here, and I was in the middle of recording my beginner's guide to Cubase 12. However, I got completely distracted by the new effects modulator, which is one of the new plugins that comes bundled in Cubase 12. So let's just dive in and take a look. Right, so I've just put this little loop together. I like the chord progression and I like the groove. However, the mix is a little bit problematic and overall it's just a touch boring, but we're looking to solve all that using just the effects modulator. But anyway, let's have a look at what we have so far. Okay, so straight off the bat, as I'm sure you can hear, that kick and bass are causing each other a whole lot of problems. So let's look to sort that out. So I'm going to grab the effects modulator. Okay, so here it is, and what it basically is a multi-effects module combined with an LFO tool. And rather than just dive right in and show you exactly what every little detail does, I will explain as I use it throughout this project. So I'm going to start off real simple by adding an effects module by double-clicking. And if I just solo the bass, you'll be able to see I can control the volume by pulling this up and down. And of course, what I want to do is duck this bass when the kick drum is hitting. So to do that, I'm just going to double click to create a node. Pull this down. And then using this time dial, I'm going to set this to a quarter note. And now we should hear the volume move in time to this LFO. Now, if you click and hold between two nodes, you can create curves, and we can add as many nodes as we want. So let's bring the kick back in. Okay, so let's do an A-B by bypassing it. Okay, so straight away we can hear that it's a whole lot better. The bass is ducking out of the way of the initial transient of the kick. However, because the kick drum I'm using is so long, the tail end of the kick drum is still overlapping when the bass gets unducked or comes back in. So what I'm going to do is bring up my mix console and I'm going to copy this effects modulator onto my kick drum. So now obviously that is just going to duck the kick drum and bass at the same time. But what I can do is click this button here, flip vertically. And what that's going to do is put the exact opposite LFO on the kick drum, which is in turn going to give the bass a whole lot more room to breathe. So let's have a listen. Okay, so you might need headphones to be able to fully appreciate this, but let's A-B it. Right, so that's going to make the mixdown process a whole lot easier because I've just created myself a ton more headroom in the low end. Okay, so it's all well and good using the LFO to duck the bass. However, I only want the bass ducking when the kick drum is playing, so I'm going to use my kick as a sidechain input to activate the effects modulator. So to do that, I'm going to activate the sidechain by hitting this button at the top, and then hit the cogwheel to open up the sidechain routing. And then I'm going to add my kick as my sidechain source. And then in the bottom of the plugin, activate the sidechain. Pull this up a bit so we can see. Right now, the sidechain input is set to internal. So let's switch that to sidechain 1. And as far as modes go, we have two options. Continuous, which basically acts like an envelope follower, and cycle, which re-triggers the LFO every time the threshold is hit. We have the usual attack, release, and gain. We have the option to make it frequency dependent if we want. I don't want that right now. And we can use this line to set the threshold of when we want the LFO activated. Okay, so let's just play it to see how it sounds, and then I'll just mute the kick so we can hear the effect properly. So let's bring in the rest of the drums. And as it goes, now that I have the ducking on the bass, I feel like I can raise the overall level of that bass up a bit. But anyway, I feel like we can add a little bit more interest to these drums. So I've just got some white noise here. So let's see what we can do with this. So of course I'm going to throw the effects modulator onto the noise, and I'm going to start off again with the volume module. And I'm going to take the sidechain input from my top loop. And just make sure I've got my send set to 0 dB. And I'm going to hit the pre-fader button just in case I make any level adjustments to that top loop in a bit. Let me just solo the top loop so you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so that's what I'm taking the sidechain input from. Let's activate it again. Select sidechain 1. But this time I'm going to keep the mode at continuous, so it's going to act like an envelope follower. We pull the attack down. Let's pull this level down. And let's see what we have. So just to make things a bit more clear, I'm going to solo the noise. And I'm actually going to pull down the volume on the top loop. And I'm just going to play about with the release settings. So if I bring that top loop back in, you can see just added a little bit more interest to that top loop. But I do feel like I want to take things a little bit further. So I'm going to switch the mode to cycle. And let's increase this to maybe a quarter note. And let's create a couple of nodes. So I'm going to try experimenting with having the noise come in between the gaps in the top loop, if that makes sense. Let's see what we can do. Let's decrease the time a little bit. Okay, so I like that. Might need to increase the output a little bit so you can hear a bit better. Let's add another module. Let's try the width. And I'm going to put this before the volume module. Let's have a listen to it. Okay, so that sounds to me like it's basically a has effect. Don't actually have an instruction manual for this just yet. Let's add some modulation to it. So as well as drawing in our own modulation, we can hit these buttons to add some shapes. We can also click and drag to highlight an area. And then we can populate that area with one of these shapes as well. Get some interesting patterns. We have some handy functions down here like duplicate curve, undo, redo, shift everything left or right. I've already showed you the flip vertically. You can also flip horizontally. We can select all curve points if we want to move everything about together. We can reset the curves, and we have a randomizer as well. If we create a curve that we like, we can save them in any one of these slots and any one of these banks by clicking on the plus button. We also have a bunch more banks. We have various different waveforms. Various different pumping effects. As well as some evolving LFOs. Let's try some of those out. Okay, I like it. It's subtle, but I like it. Let's add another module. Go with the pan. And I'm going to go on LFO waveform. Go with the sine. Now it's worth noting that each one of these modules can not only have their own sidechain input, but also their own individual timings. So straight away you can see that the possibilities are pretty much endless when it comes to modulation. Now we can solo any one of these modules, as well as mute any. And if we want to delete a module, we just click on the X button. And if we're sure we want to delete it, we just hit the tick button. Quite happy with what I have right now. Let's bring in the top loop, see what it sounds like. I'm going to bring it down in the mix, make it a little bit more subtle. So even just having it low down in the mix like this is just adding a little bit something extra to the groove. Let me mute and unmute it just to prove that point. Right, so let's have a playback on these chords. So right now they sound like this. So of course, let's put the effects modulator on. And let's try maybe a bit of overdrive. I like it. Right, let's experiment. Let's activate sidechain. This time let's go with internal and continuous. So we've basically got a dynamic overdrive. So the louder the sound, the more overdrive. The quieter the sound gets, the less overdrive. Right, let's try some reverb. And I'm going to pull this down so it's 8 bars long. And this is basically the dry wet for the reverb. And I want it to get more wet as the 8 bars go on. Let's have a listen. Okay, so I think maybe start with a little bit more and end with a little bit less. Make it a bit more subtle. Right, so let's try out this time shifter. And I'm going to put this before the overdrive and reverb. So let me just mute the overdrive and reverb. And let's just grab one of these preset LFOs so you can hear what it's doing. I can use this as basically a fill. And hit pick for MIDI remote mapping. And I'm going to twist the first dial on my controller, hit apply mapping. Now I have made a video all about the MIDI remote that you can check out here. But since making that video, I've actually bought myself a little mini monitor to sit beside my MIDI controller, which you can see here. So I've always got access to my MIDI remote. Maybe a bit overkill, but I like it. But anyway, now that's mapped. Cool. Let's tidy that up just a touch. Let's bring in the other effects as well. See how that sounds. And let's have a listen with the drums and the bass. Right, so let's do one more thing. I have this kind of pad sound. It's just following along with the chords. Okay, so I'm of course going to load in the FX modulator, and this time I think I'm going to go through some of the presets just to hear what the experts have come up with in this. Let's see what we have. I'm going to go through a few of them until I find one that I like. Okay, so I could go through these forever, but quite like this keyboard chorus pump. And let's go a little bit extra. Add a volume. Let's take the sidechain input from the chords. Let's have a listen to that. Cool, so let's put everything together. Man, absolutely loving this thing now. I do just want to say, because I do keep on forgetting to say it, that this is not a sponsored video. I'm not being paid by Steinberg to say any of these things. However, they did very graciously provide me with a copy of Cubase 12 to make this video with. So big up to Steinberg for doing that. I know you don't have to, but you do, and I very much appreciate it. Okay, so that's the new effects modulator in Cubase 12. As you can see, I've had a whole lot of fun using it, even though I barely feel like I'm scratching the surface of what this thing's actually capable of. So do let me know in the comments below how you guys and girls are using it. We'd love to hear. Also, if you do want to catch my beginner's guide to Cubase 12, make sure you hit that subscribe button. As always, thanks to my Patreons for making this possible. But anyway, that's it for now. I've been Craig Lopez. This has been Tutorialism. Now go make some music. Peace.